To call the meeting to order of Board of Education, March 9th, 2021, invocation. Please rise. To piggyback on what Ms. Hall said 2 weeks ago, it's official that this meeting actually was a year ago. This was our last meeting before this whole COVID started in the town. And it was this week that we closed the schools and started handing out packets, and hopefully it was a 2-week thing and we were going to get back, but now you see a year later what happened. So, but I want to just thank all the people over the last year, what they've done to get us to this point with the vaccines, all the work with the vaccines, getting them online, and pray that the COVID will be over as soon as possible and we can get back to some normalcy. So, moment of silence for that, please. Thank you. Amen. And I pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Fire evacuation, we have 2 exits out of the chambers, one to the rear of the chambers, the one you came in, out to the parking lot, and it so happened we have the one to my left, your right, and the left down the stairs into the rear parking lot. Could we have roll call, please?
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mrs. Hall?
Here.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mr. Ryder?
Remote present.
Mr. Salazar?
Here.
Mrs. Thurston? Here. Mr. Ungary?
Here.
Chairman Krizel?
Here. Thank you, Mr. Ryder, for joining us remotely. So we're at number 6, board guests, and we'll start off with Mr. Drezek, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have several very, I'll stop it there, but I could keep saying very all night, special guests. Pleased to welcome our Enfield Public Schools nurses to come in front of the board, but just as importantly for folks at home to put names with faces for some of them, but to also express our appreciation for everything that they've done. Unless you guys don't read my updates, you should know, but some people at home may not know this. You know, you hear an expression often like, I couldn't do without you, and sometimes that's just being polite. For anybody in the Enfield Public Schools who has either received a vaccine or will get a vaccine tomorrow, it literally would not have happened without these folks that are in the audience and some of their colleagues who couldn't make it tonight. When we first partnered with Trinity, and I'll get into that in my update, one of the first conversations I had with the gentleman from Trinity was, you know, we can get the doses for you, but it may take a while to get, because we have so many staff members, to get all the vaccination into arms, because we just don't have the staff to do it. But if you can help us out with any nursing support you may have, it'll expedite the process for it. So I reached out to Trish Veda. So for those of you who don't know, first of all, Trish is not here tonight, not because she didn't want to be, because I told her she couldn't. I didn't want her sitting in a room of crowded people. And I am as shocked as you guys are that she actually listened to me. That's the first time in like 20 years Trish has actually said something. So Trish is watching. For those who don't know, Trish is our nursing supervisor. You may have heard the title thrown around, especially a lot in the last year. What a lot of people don't realize is Trish actually retired like 8 years ago. And she never left, thank goodness for us. But what happened was every time we'd hire a new nursing supervisor, Trish would start to train them. And I think people just realize they can never live up to what Trish had done for so many years here. They never actually made it through, so she just stayed. But we are extremely lucky and grateful that Trish has stayed, because we wouldn't have gotten through this last year without her. But I had reached out to Trish and I asked her, I said, I got good news, bad news, Trish. I said, Trinity's going to be able to get us vaccine. I said, but the bad news is, and I didn't even get it out. She said, we're all set. I said, what do you mean you're all set? She goes, the nurses are already going to take care of it. She goes, they already have a schedule. It's already all coordinated. There's 2 pieces of training. There's an online component. There's an in-person component. We've already done the online component. We're scheduling an in-person training. You just tell us when the clinic is and get out of our way. We'll do it. I never had to ask. But what people at home need to realize is no one gets a shot in the Enfield Public Schools if it's not for them. This wasn't their job. I didn't ask them to do it. I was going to. I'll be honest with you. At some point, I was going to beg, but I didn't need to. They volunteered. They stepped up, and they're bailing us out in a way that I can never truly appreciate or never truly express my appreciation for. And it's funny that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that we are coming up on our year anniversary, if you want to call it that. And I remember it was March 12th when I had to make that call and shut the district down. And some of you may remember it was March 13th that we were at central office. A bunch of us were there. Some of you were there. We were actually handing packets out to families who weren't able to get it earlier in the week. And we were downstairs handing packets out, and my phone rang, and it was the infamous robocall number. And I knew I had just recorded the previous evening the worst message I ever thought I'd have to send home to parents. And Guy's in the room with me, so I'm like, what did we do? I'm like, you didn't send something else out about a book fair or something? Or because a lot of times Guy will keep me in check. If I forget something, he'll send it out. And then I started to panic. I'm like, did I forget something? And I answer the call, and of course it's Guy's voice. Good afternoon. And as Guy's going on, the message was to all Enfield Public School parents whose students may have medications, that there is a pickup arranged over the weekend to come to your child's school to get the medications that were left behind in the event we were gone more than 2 weeks. And immediately I totally blanked on that. I 100% forgot about it. I'll be the first one to admit it. But they didn't. They had organized. Everybody got together and we knew we were closing. They went through with every family, every kid, anything they needed to know about anybody who may have. And if you think about it, as a parent, that could be terrifying that your kid's medication is in their school and we don't know when we're allowed back in. Not only did they organize it, get it all together, they did it on the weekend. They reached out to buildings and grounds so they knew they were coming. And they did it all without even us knowing. And as a matter of fact, when I called Trish and said, I can't believe I forgot about this, after Trish laughed at me, which she also does, Trish said, Chris, it's what we do. And I thought about that, especially over the last year, because a lot of the things that they've been asked to do, and people who may not have an experience with their school nurse, because luckily your child may not need medication, or you may think that, they sit in the office and if they don't have a tummy ache after lunch, or they put a Band-Aid, or they hound you for paperwork when it comes to physicals and things like that. That's not what they do. When I sit up here and tell you guys I take care of your kids, like they literally take care of your kids. And what they've shown over the last few weeks is they've also taken care of us. So it's Trish was wrong. I'll go on record. She's not going to be happy. It's not what you do, it's who you are. And people need to see that. And I think that's what we all aspire to be. So you guys can't ask a lot of questions because they have a very busy day tomorrow. But I wanted to make sure that, we had our first guest in person was our Teacher of the Year. And I thought it was important that I reached out to the chairman and said, I want to make sure that not just the board knows what you do, but everybody in this town needs to know what you do all the time, but in particularly what you guys have done over the last week. So thank you. Who wants to go speak?
I'd like to say something. How you guys doing?
Is this about nurses?
This is about what's going on in your school system.
Okay, there's a part for audience. At that point, this is just for special guests. We have to stay to the agenda. But there's another part
that's
under
public
under
participation
8,
later, sir.
participation. We'll give you the opportunity to talk.
So can the nurses please stand?
No, it's part we have to stay to the agenda.
We all smile under our masks, I know. Anyone, the mic's open. Anyone want to speak? Go ahead, Mr. Blank.
I just want to thank you guys for being the district healthcare heroes. That's how I see you as heroes. The fact that you're stepping up and giving the vaccines to the district is amazing. And as a parent and a board member, I can say that the teachers in the district, from what I've seen and what they've said, on social media, that they are so grateful that our district is doing this. I know some of you personally, and I think you're amazing. And I hope you don't listen to all the chatter that's negative on social media, because you guys do multitask and your hands are full right now with everything you're dealing with COVID and what you have to fill out for the state and parents, and you're trying to be there for the parents as well as the students too, because it's now the times are settling, but there was a time it was very scary and very uncertain for all of us. So I'm sure you took the brunt of that. But I want to say thank you. This resonates deeply with me because some of you know I have a daughter who will hopefully be an RN this summer. And no, it's all about you tonight. But this is what you guys do as nurses, and I can't thank you enough for doing what you did and making this all possible. So again, thank you.
Anyone else want to, Ms. Thurston?
I know that I am constantly saying how much the teachers, love the students and everything. And I'm sitting here listening to Chris, and you made me cry. I have tears in my eyes because we do sometimes, and I apologize, I want this to come out right. Sometimes we do forget that you guys are there. You guys love our students just as much. And, working at a nursing home this past year, I saw the nurses and how important, you guys are. And I know I'm going to start crying again. But just thank you for everything that you guys do. And, like Mr. Drezick said, without you guys, the teachers wouldn't have been able to get their shots. And for you guys to step up the way that you did without him even having to ask, you guys should be sitting there right now. No. But no, I've already had mine. No. But thank you guys. I mean, you guys are just incredible. So thank you.
Mr. Salazar, I'm sorry.
I'll say, well, first of all, I'm glad that, we not only that we have you here, but we heard what we heard, and I hope that there's a lot of people watching and are listening to it as well. But as a manager in a business, every 6 months or at least every year, you have a conversation with your employees about, what we refer to as reviews or dialogues. And people are always asking, what do I need to do to go beyond meets expectations, right? Those are the rankings. Does not meet expectations, meet expectations. And people are always asking, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? It certainly sounds from everything that I've heard this evening and from the work that you've done, that you far exceeded expectations, that rating that everybody's hoping to get. So if nothing else, I'm glad that you're being recognized tonight. I thank you for the work that you've done, and kudos to each one of you for just taking that initiative and going above and beyond. That's what exceeding expectations is the definition of, and you guys lived it. So thank you very much.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, I remember back in elementary school, and you would go into the nurse's office and get a yellow sponge, frozen sponge, in a bag for your headache, and you would go lay down for a little while, and the nurses were always just the kindest people you would ever come across. And years later, here you guys are, combating something no one of us ever saw coming. So as was stated previously, you guys are the real heroes, and continue the good work. Thank you.
Mr. Ungaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you and for all you do. And the profession of nursing is one that I deeply admire. And it's because of who you are, because nurses are, you have to have a heart for nursing. It's not for everybody. And it really reflects that you care about people. And that makes you very special people. So I want to thank you again and appreciate all you do.
Mr. Ryder, you have anything to say?
Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On occasion, we all travel for work or things come up, and I didn't want to miss a meeting ever. But sometimes you miss a meeting. I've been doing this for almost 4 years, and I've missed one meeting or two meetings, and I couldn't miss this meeting when I saw the corrected or the revised agenda from Kathy and Mr. Drezick's office. And when I saw that the nurses were going to be on here, although I'm traveling for work this week, I wanted to say thank you very much personally as a dad who has 2 kids in the schools, and as somebody that's seen all the good work you've done and the volunteering that you've offered to do even above and beyond the job that you do, like Mr. Salazar, Mr. LeBlanc, and Ms. LeBlanc said. Thank you guys very much for everything. So thank you for keeping us safe, healthy, and most importantly, keeping us open. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Sorry. Well, I'll end with saying I've always trusted our staff, and you guys just bring our staff even to the next level, that we can count on you, and thank you very much for that. So again, another round of applause for them, because they deserve it. Now you're free to go and start shooting.
I forgot one
Go ahead,
thing.
Mr. Drezick.
Not only do they take care of us, and the board's aware of this, the public may not be, with our vaccination plan, we got lumped together with 3 other towns. And one of the concerns, I can say Stafford, they were in the same boat. They're going to hold their clinic at the annex. But the superintendent called me and said, I only have 3 nurses. And we want to try to get 230 people through the line. So again, I reached out to Trish, and she said, nope, I've already talked to the nursing supervisor there. Our nurses are going to cover. So on Friday, our nurses were at the annex giving doses to Stafford nurses because, again, somebody else was in need. They were there to help them out. So it just is a testament to what these guys do and what they do all the time. So thank you again.
And I'm hopeful that Ms. Veda's at home watching, so we thank you very much, too, from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, no, she's probably texting me now. It's when my phone's upside down.
Thank you again. And like I said, you're free to disembark.
See you tomorrow. Good night, guys. Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion, or someone entertain a motion that we take 11A, suspend the rules and take the agenda out of order and move 11A to now so we can get Chris Cycli and Ms. DiGastono on to talk about
I second that,
11A. So,
Mr. Chair.
so moved by Mr. Ryder, second by Mr. Ungary, to suspend the rules and move to 11A. And all in favor? Scott, you in favor? Obviously.
Yes. Aye. Yes, sir.
Nine in favor, 0 against. So with that, we are at 11A, review and action, if any, regarding the revised education specification dated March 3rd, 2021 for the Eli Whitney roof replacement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Mr. Salazar. Chris Cycli and Sam, I'm going to butcher it, DiGastono.
Yes. So I can talk about this. So
Please.
Originally in
Chris,
December.
Chris, just give me your name and title for the record so they have it.
Sorry, Chris Cycli, Construction Solutions Group, owner's project manager for the Eli Whitney roof replacement. So when we had initially presented the ed specs back in December for this project, we were doing so with some limited information, as we didn't have the architect fully on board to be able to properly do the existing building survey. By that I mean dimensioning of the existing roofing so that we could put the plans together and come up with exact square footages. Therefore, the original ed specs did not have the correct, it had old information that was on file, essentially. So the new document that you have in front of you tonight has the corrected square footage, as well as total square footage, as well as the square footage that is anticipated to be replaced for this, through this grant.
Okay, I think that says it in a nutshell. Any other discussion? Mr. Salazar.
Just to validate that we're looking at the corrected document, can we?
It's the one that's in our packet, I believe.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it. Can we say for the record what the square footage is, the correct number is?
Go ahead.
Sure, yes. So the total square footage is 76,958 square feet. And the section that is being replaced through this grant is 60,478 square feet.
Thank you. Any
So
other?
it's the ed specs that were originally submitted December 21st, 2020, revised March 3rd, 2021.
Any other discussion? So can we have roll call, please, Kathy?
Yes. Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Salazar?
For.
Mrs. Thurston? Yes. Mr. Ungary?
4.
Chairman Krizel?
Yeah, yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, you two. And just for the record too, we're going to have a meeting next Wednesday to approve the minutes. So after next Wednesday, we should be all set.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thank you, Chris. Sam.
So now we move back to number 7, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things before I get into the school reopen update. I have to take the opportunity, and I'm sure the board members have heard, but to take this chance to thank the town council for reappropriating an additional $400,000 to the Board of Ed for this fiscal year. The nexus of that was essentially the council, keeping their word to us last spring when the board reduced their budget down to 0. We voluntarily reduced our budget down to 0 to try to help out. We kind of went through that during the budget process. And one of the promises that the council made to us, and you got to remember when the town budget was set, there was a lot of uncertainty when it came to state funding, particularly for ECS and for educational funding. And the promise the council made was, they were getting no guarantees at the state level for funding for this current fiscal year, but if the money came through, they would pass it along to us, and it's exactly what they did. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the council members this past Monday for reappropriating additional funds for us for this year. That'll go, obviously we submitted our budget already, so Lorena's already has her head spinning about what we're going to do with it, but that will make that 2% carryover that we recommended in our budget a lot more attainable, having a large chunk of that, and it'll also help with, as I get into what we're talking about with reopening schools, there's additional expenses for our schools to be reopened again, things like tents and things along those lines that we're able to secure now as well. So that's the portion about the funding in case we don't have to take any action because the council changed our appropriation. But we'll have the opportunity when we do meet with the town council to present our budget. I want to make sure the board was aware, and we have the opportunity to thank the council for that as well. Okay. More importantly, as you kind of know by now, and the fact that we had most of our nurses here, last Wednesday we had our first vaccine clinic at the Annex. But a lot of things had to go into making that happen. And there's a few people I want to go on record to thank, so in case I forget until we're completed. And I got to start with our town manager. This partnership with Trinity that we've all heard about at this point, there's a mass vaccination center at the Annex right now. That doesn't happen without Chris taking some initiative. And one of the things that we didn't get a chance to discuss at length was Chris actually invited me into part of those conversations and those dialogues very early on. And we had the opportunity to meet with Trinity a while back when they were kind of scouting out the area, and the first school they were interested was Enfield High School. And then as none of us were aware, as we were showing them Enfield High School, and they were overly impressed with our facility there, that the clinic would actually be permanent. So obviously Enfield High School wouldn't work because I thought we would just be like a Wednesday thing, but it's going to be here for quite some time. So at that point, we transitioned over to the annex where we had the further conversations, and it really the town taking the initiative and the support to get Trinity in here. One of the things that I normally wouldn't share, but I think it's important, is during those initial conversations, Chris made it very clear that his priority was helping the school system get vaccinated so we can get reopened. And anything Trinity can do to help that was a big priority for him. And as you guys know, and maybe the public doesn't, Chris and I have worked very closely over the last several years. He's become not just a trusted partner, but a friend throughout these last few years. And we made a commitment that anything we did, we'd do for the betterment of the community. So I know a lot of people watching at home, teachers watching at home who got their vaccine and are so excited. Chris had a big hand in that. The second part was the infrastructure, and that was our partnership with Trinity Health. Board members know, after a very long and probably unsettling message I sent you guys on the evening of the 28th, it didn't look very promising last week that we were going to get some vaccine. And I'm not going to relive that weekend ever again because I don't think I can handle it, and you guys don't certainly want to hear about it. But what I think the public needs to know is that going into March 1st until about 10:15, Enfield educators had absolutely zero allocation of vaccine doses for us. And it wasn't until our friend at Trinity, and I'll butcher his last name, so I refer to him affectionately as Trinity Dave. He knows that, so I can say it now. He sent a message to the 4 towns that had gotten lumped together, which was us, Suffield, Summers, and Stafford, and said, good news, I found some doses. Let's talk later this afternoon. And really, it was the work of Trinity securing doses from an existing clinic and transitioning over to us because they were part of those conversations all weekend, knowing that the 4 of us were really left out in the cold, where every other district around us was getting vaccine and no one else was. So I can't thank Trinity enough, particularly Trinity Dave, because he took more phone calls over a weekend than he should have had to. But the good news is we had found doses. The bad news was we had about 24 hours to turn a clinic around. But you know what? We'd rather deal with that and have people vaccinated than worry about the struggling of trying to find the resources to do that. So we had our first clinic on Wednesday, last Wednesday, the 3rd. One of the... Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, shit.
Well, hold on, yeah, Bill's not. Go back. All right, so we're back in session. I'm assuming we're live. So please continue, Mr. Dresser.
Okay, I apologize.
Sorry about that, people.
No, I hope that gentleman's okay. So anyway, picking up where I think I left off. Our friend, my new friend Trinity Dave was able to secure doses for the district and also the other 3 districts, but it meant we had to turn around a clinic relatively quickly. So the good news was we were able to get 307 appointments of that allocation just for Enfield staff members, and then 2 other districts had dropped off our list. So at the end, it was just us and, as you heard earlier, Stafford Public Schools. So on Wednesday, we had our first clinic through Trinity at the Annex. Stafford had theirs on Friday. Fortunately for Stafford, they're done already because of the number of staff members that they have. But we also have, as you've heard this evening from our wonderful nurses, they had to leave because they have a big day ahead of them tomorrow, that we have another clinic tomorrow where I'm teetering with whether I want to actually say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. Any Enfield Public School staff member that wishes or is eligible, and I have to put an asterisk next to the eligible because there are some people who physically can't get the vaccine at the moment, whether they've had a previous vaccine for something else or they had COVID themselves. But any Enfield Public School staff member who wants and is willing to take the vaccine will have their first dose in their arm by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Additionally, because again, the help of Trinity Dave, on Friday, anyone at Smith Bus that is willing and eligible to get the vaccine, we're having a separate clinic on Friday afternoon for just an hour and a half because there's only 50 of them. And again, our nurses are volunteering to come over and get our bus drivers done. That means everybody in the Enfield Public Schools by the close of this week, staff members, and included in staff members are teachers, paraprofessionals, cafeteria staff members, clerical staff members, administrators, vast majority of our custodians and possibly buildings and grounds, depending upon how many vacancies we have, and our bus drivers will not only have their first dose, but based on that schedule, we are all receiving the Pfizer vaccine. And that Pfizer vaccine, the second dose is 21 days from the first dose as opposed to the Moderna, which is 28 days. Which means as our staff members get their vaccine, they also receive a card with their appointment for their follow-up shot right then and there. So those who got vaccinated last Wednesday have an appointment for their second dose on March 24th. Those who will get vaccinated tomorrow will get their appointment for March 31st. And then our friends at Smith Bus will get their first dose on Friday and their second dose on April 2nd, which is Good Friday, of which our nurses have also volunteered to work Good Friday to vaccinate those staff members as well. What does that mean? That means by the end of April, every member of the Enfield Public School staff who was wanted and willing and able to take the vaccine will have both doses of it in them. I did not think I would be saying that on March 9th based upon the last 2 weeks of interactions we've had when it came to the vaccine. What that also means is that by the time we return from April vacation on April 19th, all of our staff members who have vaccine in them will be fully vaccinated. So what I had shared at the last board meeting that was hopeful is actually coming to fruition. And that's because of a lot of work that went in, and I skipped, and I apologize, I meant to mention about the clinic, so bear with me. A lot of people had a lot to do with the clinics. I know you guys get the messages from me and the frustration from me, but there's a lot of people on the backside that are helping make this happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen without our nurses. It doesn't happen without our friends at Trinity. But there's a few people I have to mention because they're going to do it again tomorrow. Guy, for those who don't know, Guy Barassa and Maureen Jewell have taken on a life of their own when it comes to scheduling and getting these. There's information on employees that we have to submit to Trinity. It also means that as people, our list, just to put in perspective, just for EPS staff, initially was about 800 staff members. So this one's for Stacy. I said it over the summer. Nobody really picked up on it, but this one's for you. I'm going to quote an American poet again. Oh, we're halfway there. As of tomorrow, we should finish the second half. But what that means is, of the 800 people that we have, a lot of staff members went out and got their own appointments. We have to keep track of that. I realized very early on, before our first clinic, that I wasn't organized enough to figure all this out. So I asked Maureen and Guy to sort of take on that role. So Maureen, again, both of them don't listen to me, which is their own fault in this case, because they both have ringers when they get school emails on their phones. So up until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning the night before, and it's happening right now, anytime somebody reaches out and says, I can't make my appointment, they email Maureen. She goes in, adjusts the list. Guy goes in, makes sure the appointments get switched. Guy has the master schedule for the we have a survey that says, are you going to make your appointment or not? And on top of that, while we're at the clinic, Guy literally stood like a ticket broker at Yankee Stadium yelling, I got one. And he would point to me and I would send him one to station number 9. Maureen was going back and forth to the office because as we had a cancellation of people that wouldn't show up, she would have to go back to the office to get somebody else's information so we can make phone calls to get somebody else down there. We did not want one dose to go to waste. In addition to those two, Judy Zahler and Jeanette LaMontagne, they sat at the registration table because we had to supply someone to check people in. And about 10 o'clock, they looked at me and said, don't ask for volunteers ever again. We have a system. We know what we're doing. Go away. So the core of those people are going to be at every clinic that we have, and none of it would have went as smooth. We moved 268 people through that line, and nobody ever had to wait more than 5 minutes to get their shot. And that was because of the work of all of them. I digress. Back to what the real importance of this is that when we return, all of our staff members are fully vaccinated. Now, there will be people who aren't eligible or didn't want it. I can't control that. For those who want it, but they're not technically eligible right now based on a previous medical, a previous vaccination or something along those lines, we are still going to take care of them. They will get it as soon as they're eligible. Trinity will get them into the Trinity Clinic. But what that means for us is, I can't underscore this enough. I've sat up here for a year, albeit here or in my office, on a Zoom call, whatever we were doing, and I haven't been able to give you guys any good news, really, over the last year. I'm not foolish enough to think that the pandemic is over. Mr. Ungar, you and I had a conversation. I don't control when these things come off. That's going to come from the state, and I know other states are doing it. And I'm not foolish to think that life will be completely normal again. But to sit here today on March 9th and say, April 19th, our schools are going to be open 4 days a week, and our kids are going to have a sense of normalcy again, was something I didn't think was possible. So I'm done with the negative stuff. I've complained up here long enough. You all heard me complain about a litany of things, including some are represented at the state level, but I will give the governor credit. We squawked loud enough and he listened, and when he listened, he turned around and said, you got a month, and we're going to make it a priority that every school district gets the doses, and he kept his word. So I appreciate the work that the governor and his team did to make sure we got them. But what that means for us, and I know the last time I sat here, I mentioned I was going to send out a notice to families. You also noticed that didn't go out until today. Let me explain why. I didn't want to send a notice out to families that said, great news, we're going back 4 days a week, March 22nd, only to say, we can't really do a full week that week. I wasn't quite sure. It wasn't really until this morning that we locked in our clinic for tomorrow. And then we locked in the Smith Bus Clinic, and that's important because we are getting the Pfizer dose. Although we've been fortunate, there have been some, I can't say it's been totally zero, some side effects for the first dose. We have been advised that to prepare yourself for if staff members are going to have an adverse side effect from any of the doses, it's going to be on the second one. We got lucky that the clinic was here and up and running, and we can start our first clinics on a Wednesday because last time I was here, I warned the public I may have to call a remote day just to do the first clinic because we have to utilize all our nursing staff. Well, we are already remote. All of our clinics are now on Wednesdays with the exception of the Smith Bus one. So we kind of dodged that, not having to shut schools down in order to administer the first dose, but we won't be as lucky on the second. And I have heard from colleagues, and there may be questions about, well, what if you got the J&J version? I had a call today with a lot of colleagues who sent staff members to the Xfinity Center this weekend and had a lot of call outs because people were having side effects from the 1-dose shot. So we've been warned that people may have side effects from the second dose. So because of that, and because of the schedule, the second dose will be administered to the first group on the 24th of March. So I need to call a district-wide remote day on the 25th because we have so many people throughout so many buildings that will be getting the shot. We can't run the risk that people will have side effects, not be able to come to work, and have to call school at 5 in the morning based on a number of call-outs. So to make sure that we're preparing properly, I went ahead this morning and announced in the message that I sent out to all families that I was making the decision now so people can plan. I also understand people thought we'd be back 4 days a week that week, and I got to tell you we can't, but hang with me, we're almost there. Now that we're having our second and final Enfield Public Schools clinic tomorrow, the same will happen for the March 31st dose, which then makes April 1st. So it's not an April Fool's joke, kids. There is going to be an asynchronous learning day that day because we have to guard against side effects. Because our friends at Smith are getting their first dose Friday, their second dose will be on Good Friday, and that allows them the weekend in the event, because the other concern we had is if we scheduled our next clinic for next Wednesday and had Smith come in, then they would get their second dose a week later, and it was possible we wouldn't have any bus drivers for a day after their second dose. So Trinity really moved mountains to get our friends at Smith in this week so that we were all on the same schedule. That said, when we get back, so the week of the 22nd, and I apologize, I may have sent Guy an old chart. I think somebody got a calendar, and that was a mistake on my part because we were running around trying to get this out to people so they knew. So the week of the 22nd won't be a full 4-week school week. It'll be anyone who's eligible to go 4 days a week so the cohorts can begin to mix. So Monday and Tuesday will be in person. Wednesday's previous remote. The remote are staying for the remainder of the year. We've already established that. Thursday the 25th will be a remote day. And then Friday the 26th, we can return to in-person. So it'll actually be 3 days that week. The following week, because of the holiday, Monday and Tuesday would be in person, the week of the 29th. The 31st and the 1st will be remote days, and then the district is closed for Good Friday on the 2nd. When we return on the 5th, that will be our first week of 4-day in-person for those who are eligible. So pre-K through 5 and anyone who's eligible at Enfield High as well as at JFK and those pre-established criteria. And then we go away for April break. And when we return on April break, we're open again. So we're going to be open 4 days a week. We've already established that we do have a large number of remote learners that are going to remain that way for the rest of the year. So to be fair to those kids and those teachers, we have to allow those Wednesdays for those kids to make sure that they catch up and don't fall through the cracks. But now we can say that come April 19th, any student who wants to come back 4 days a week can do so. And we can start to at least look like school again. And I will quote my own kid when she was having troubles with remote learning earlier on and said to me, "Dad, this isn't school." So I've heard all the pain and I've heard all the horror stories from families over the last year. I'm not immune to that either in my own home. I know what it's like. I have to wear a different hat at times. I get it. But at the end of the day, all of our staff members, as of April 19th, who have been vaccinated, are no longer required to quarantine, which means we don't have to send people home for 2 weeks and shut classes or buildings down any longer. And our staff has been patient. This is what they've been hoping and waiting for. Stacy got emotional talking to the nurses. I wish you were in line on Wednesday when the teachers and staff members came through, because there wasn't a dry eye in the place, because people are actually seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. So this is the last long superintendent's update I'm ever giving you guys, at least for another year. You're welcome. But this is the one I've been waiting a year to give. With any luck, we're starting to have conversations. There are conversations ongoing. I know I freaked Erin out because I thought I had told her I was going to announce it and I didn't, but we're graduating outside. I don't know what it's going to look like because we don't necessarily control that at this point in time because there are still restrictions on, large size of crowds and things like that. So that's going to be an ongoing conversation, but as big as they let us have it, we're gonna. But those kids are walking down that hill. All the other activities that we can provide for kids, we're certainly going to do everything we can to try. I got a orchestra thing on my desk today that I approved. We're going to try it. I mean, we still have guidelines we have to follow. It's not like it's just forget this ever happened. But we are going to try to make life as normal for these kids as possible to pick them up where they left off. The other benefit of us being able to pull this off sooner than we thought was that, we've had a lot of discussion about what summer programming was going to look like so that we can assess where kids are and where they may have had some deficiencies over the past year. We're going to have our kids back 4 days a week for 2.5 months. That's going to give us a much better opportunity to really assess where they are, start intervention now as opposed to waiting till the summer or waiting until the fall next year to do that. So that said, I think I covered anything. I apologize if the letter was confusing. I anticipated questions from some of you, so I tried to add everything I could into this letter, and it looked like alphabet soup at one point. But I know that parents just need to know when their kids are eligible to go back to school, and having the opportunity to express that tonight, because it's easier to have a conversation than to put something in a letter and people understand what it is. So that's the good news, and we're going to end with that, Mr. Chairman. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dredzik. So we'll move to audiences. And just so you know, it's a 3-minute limit, and we have, can the first person please roll the chair back up and leave it there, and just come up to the table, say your name and address for the record, and after you state your name and address, I'll start the 3-minute timer.
So, my name is Michael
Just have a seat, hold on. Let me get
Yeah,
this.
well, I'm not a resident of Enfield. I'm actually here on the behalf of a student that had some words for you guys today, but he had to leave due to the emergency that happened with his grandfather. Excuse me, my name is Michael Oratade. I'm the president of Black Lives Matter 860 out of Hartford, and I'm a teacher out in Manchester. I wanted to ask you guys, what are you doing about racism in your district, racism in your town, and racism in your schools? A young brown boy told us that he's experienced not only a severe amount of racism, but a lot of disrespect in regards to his disability, and he was assaulted by a member of your staff. And I would like to know, what are you guys doing about this? I could read an excerpt from his written testimony he made about the situation, but I do want to say that as an educator in Manchester, where they're doing a lot of work to address the equity issue that's prevalent in Connecticut, prevalent in predominantly white towns, that I'm severely disappointed about the lack of inaction to this scenario that he's been experiencing. He said that he was, listen, as a child in the special ed room, you already have a target on your back. Being made fun of was just the pepperoni on the daily pizza I was being served at school. I felt as though I had no relief from being tortured by students using racial slurs and being provoked in altercations, staff restraints, being locked in padded rooms for hours, having police and ambulances called to come and take me from school. You can imagine how this makes me feel, right? Or maybe not. There are two sides of the coin. You guys don't see the same thing that we see every day. So I want to know what you guys are doing to address the lack of equity. Do you guys have an established equity board in this town? Do you have black and brown voices to represent themselves so that you can understand what it's like to live in America as a black man, as a black boy, as a black child? I'd like to know. What are you guys doing?
I apologize, we can't go back and forth. This is only.
I'm not asking for a back and forth. I asked the question.
Well, we can't answer you right now.
You can't answer this question.
We can't.
You guys don't have any plans for an equity board. You can't even say we have a plan to establish an equity board, nothing.
We can't answer at this time. This is only the time for you to speak. We can't have a back and forth conversation.
I yield my time. I asked a question.
We can't answer it. It's not on our.
Mr. Hurtado, we can address you
Address it
during our board member comments, but we can't answer that question when you're speaking, unfortunately. But when it comes down to the board member comments, then we're able to address what you're asking.
For our policy, we can't.
Yeah.
We can't have a back and forth.
Unfortunately, that's the policy. It's
I'm not even asking for a back and forth. I literally asked a question and I expected an answer. That's all.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not asking for back and forth. I'm not. See, this is back and forth right here because I didn't have an answer.
During
You
board
understand what I'm saying?
board member comments, your questions will be addressed.
This is extremely frustrating for me. You understand? A child's complained about being locked in a padded room.
I understand, sir, but your time is up, and and thank you very much.
Actually, he's here. Allow him to make his testimony.
Anyone else want to speak? State your name and address for the record, and
My name is Elijah Lumpkin.
please, after you sit down, so the microphone can pick you up.
My name is Elijah Lumpkin, and I live on 119 Spring Street. I would like to ask why kids with an IEP are being put in a special ed room and are not being monitored in regular classes instead of having to be put in a blue room and tortured like I have myself, instead of just being monitored normally as a normal kid and being treated like a normal student.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Chanel Hope Jones, mother of Elijah Lumpkin. Residence is 119 Spring Street. I was told that I wasn't going to get very much of a response, and it's not surprising to some degree and to some respect that there is no response that can be given to us right now. What I can pose is a question of moral compass and direction moving forward. I ask you to think ahead to your later years and the thought that will come across everyone's mind at some point. I wish I knew then what I know now. Now we know that there is a systemic problem. Now we know that there are children in this town that are not only just black and brown, but are being treated differently and are suffering for that treatment that they received. The years that they're in school are supposed to be their primary, their most successful, and to utilize their brain capacity to soak in the information that we need them to succeed to become the framework of our future. And in this town, someone gave you an opportunity to become the framework of the people that you are today. And I'm here to tell you that there are frameworks that are beyond your sight that are preventing children such as my son and other children with disabilities from progressing and blossoming to be members of functional society such as yourselves. So the question that I ask of you is, what are you going to say to yourself or to the children that are going to one day sit in your seat? Do you know what you know now? Did you change what you could when you could? Because at the end of the day, each one of these kids are going to grow up to be something. And through my experience with speaking with teachers, with administrators, with parents, with other students, and with past alumni of the town of Enfield, I have heard more horror than success. I have heard of children killing themselves, committing suicide, turning to drugs and alcohol because someone would not listen. There were cries for help, and someone did not take a moment to make a gesture to give them some kind of human decency. So not only am I asking for change, I'm asking for recognition of human decency in the hopes that we can build a better Enfield, a more successful Enfield, a more diverse Enfield, so that my child and other children don't have to experience being slammed on their face by an SRO or being punched in the chest and locked in their room and refused to let out, or have to be fearful of being called a monkey. Those things hurt. The things that our parents told us about sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt, they shape our future, and so do our children. So I ask you, can you help us shape our future?
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak, please? Name and address for the record.
My name is Alyssa Suter. I used to live in Enfield. I do not any longer. I don't have too much to say because it's not my place to say much. But what you guys just watched, that 76-year-old man fall on his back, the reason that he was here with COPD during COVID at 76 years old is because his grandson needed him. You guys get that, right? Like, that's... There, I don't know if you guys have heard of declaring racism a public health crisis, but if that's not like a case in point, I don't know what is. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Garland Dewan Eastman. I live in 7 Farmington Chase. I'm a parent that I think you'll run into a lot, the ones that lost confidence in their school boards. I fled to the magnet schools for my children who are interracial to avoid the racism. But the magnet schools don't have the same quality of education you can get at Farmington schools. 7 years is what racism cost me in my education. I was marked as having special needs. I wasn't allowed to participate in classes until I became an adult and finished the Marine Corps, upon which I achieved 4 degrees, one in finance, one in mathematics, another one in philosophy, and another one in statistics, which is just math. You can't, I get that when you see a whole bunch of people come into your town and start bringing up this racial stuff, there's a want to blame the victim, to say that this is a problem that we can't, or to think there's a problem that you can't fix. Think about it as if it's your child. Think about it as if it's your years. Because the only difference between that child and you, where you are now, are years and the color of your skin. I get we're asking the impossible to some extent when we say stop this madness. But get in your schools and do the impossible to some extent. I think you guys are sincere enough where you can try it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak, please? Name and address for the record.
I'm Bill Delaney. I am a social studies teacher at JFK, and I'm the vice president of the Enfield Teachers Association. Tonight, I just really wanted to, on behalf of the ETA, a heartfelt thanks to all the effort that Superintendent Drezek has put forth through this crisis. The Herculean effort that you and your staff have achieved to get us vaccines is just simply amazing. So, on behalf of the ETA, thank you so much for just being you, the bravery you've shown this whole time. It's amazing. Also, thanks for everybody behind the scenes that has taken part in the clinics for the vaccine. I mean, I have the goosebumps right now that this is actually happening and that we are going to have students in our classroom in a very short time. That's what we're all about. That's what we want. Welcome to the board, Ms. Cushman, by the way. On a different note, this is not going to be easy, what we have in front of us. This board has spoken very eloquently about the mental health of students and the need to protect the mental health of all of our students. The end of the pandemic and the return to school is not going to be a panacea for the mental health of students. Kids are going to be happy to be back. But even before the pandemic, we were seeing a measurable uptick of anxiety disorders and kids in crisis. Now, coming back to school, that'll solve some problems for some kids. But it's going to cause some problems for other kids. They've been through things that they don't deserve. No one does. And we will need the support of all of you going forward. There's some money coming at us. Federal money, state money. And we must make sure that this money is spent wisely in the support of students to succeed and to ensure that their mental health is protected. Thank you. Thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Not as good as you guys. I had to write. Christine Aslan, 261 Pearl Street. I am a parent of 3, all in our Enfield Public Schools. We have been fortunate to have some of the best teachers and that still have a close bond with my son, who is a senior now. I have one biological child and my niece and nephew that we welcomed into our home 11 years ago. While we had the willingness to take them in, there was a long list of qualifications that we needed to have in order to have them live in our home. Some things included being financially stable and the ability to make the best decisions based on the kids, even if sometimes it wasn't the best choices for us personally. Willingness. Something that a Mrs. Mary Ann Turner recently informed me is the one and only qualification to sit in one of your seats. Can you imagine the danger if willingness was the only qualification to take a child in need into your home? Maybe it's time we aim a bit higher for qualifications so we're able to make the best choices for our public school children instead of what your personal beliefs believe. Speaking about mental health has become a common topic during these meetings. While it is great that it is spoken about often, I can't help but notice how important it is to you all to get the sports back for the mental health of those sports kids, while telling your trans kids that they are not important enough to have a protection policy for them. Looking at a policy that outlines what is not tolerated and basically saying they already have a state law, so why should we have to deal with them? Do you have any idea what that is doing to their mental health? Watching these adults who are supposed to be protecting them, saying they basically aren't important enough for a policy that CABE highly recommended. We all saw the policy meeting where you say some of the policies do not make sense. And let's be honest, the trans policy was the only real one you did not want. Do you think of the effects a child's mental health has hearing a Board of Ed member say a teacher should be able to call home and out them when they are possibly not ready? Maybe they do not have understanding parents. Are you aware of the suicide rates of the gay children who are not accepted by their family? Is this a way to scare them into being your idea of normal? To even suggest something like that makes me 100% sure you have no idea about the LGBTQ community or any of these children that we have in our public schools. And I promise you, even though you do not want to accept this, we have a whole community. Show up at our schools, mainly JFK and Enfield High, and talk to our children. Get to know them, and you'll find out why they need these policies. If you would just show up for them instead of just at a graduation for a speech or a picture, maybe you could understand them. If you can't fight for our children like you would fight for your own, then give up your seat to someone who will.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Anyone else? I declare public communications closed. So we move to board member comments. Who wants to start? Scott, you have, okay, John, Mr. LeBlanc.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. First, to go back to our superintendent's report. The $400,000, it'd be nice to see a heavy portion of that go to student activities, and anything we can to provide to these children who have lost a lot this year. And secondly, with the vaccines being the main topic of conversation, this is to the public. If you make a vaccine appointment, now I understand circumstances come up, but if you make the appointment, please go and get your shot as these doses expire. And as our superintendent stated in his report, when you're trying to call people last minute to administer these vaccines, you risk losing that vaccine shot altogether. So if you make the appointment, go and get your shot. Until the supply meets the demand, it's important that you do. Secondly, through our administration, can we inform each school to post in their weekly newsletter registration form for Enfield Little League? I passed it along to our administration this afternoon, and it'd be great if that was trickled down into our schools for it can be in their weekly newsletters. And to those watching, if you have a child that's interested in playing baseball this spring, please visit EnfieldLittleLeague.org, and under the registration tab, you can click to sign up. So season's quickly approaching. Evaluations are towards the end of this month, early April, so we'd love to have your child there. And then in regards to the flyer that was created in partnership with Kite, can we look into posting those in school and town buildings for the public to view? So maybe Alcorn or here at Town Hall or Enfield Public Library. Now I know some of those are town buildings and not through the school, but it'd be great to have that flyer out and about for the public to see as well in public places. Now a update from Kite. This is dive into diversity, which will be happening on Fridays going forward with songs or read alouds for family on Kite's Facebook page. If any families want to be a part of reading a story, contact Brianna Beckstrand at bbeckstrand, BECKSTRAND @enfield.org. Now to go back, I had a couple more notes on the superintendent's report. In regards to graduation, if it so allows, based on the state requirements, is it a possibility that we have one graduation instead of splitting it up?
Ideally, yes. I don't, it's putting the cart before the horse. We don't know what the requirements are going to be. So in a perfect world, yes, we'd only have one and it could be like old times again. But, unfortunately, we're not going to get that clarification until we get closer to the date. I have heard that there are some higher institutions that are planning their ceremonies already, and I'm hopeful that the direction from the state will trickle down to us. I think once everyone gets past this vaccine thing, the next push from us is going to be, can you tell us if we can have our graduation so we can start planning? But we can't get too greedy just yet.
Absolutely.
March isn't over.
And then Onto some of the comments that were made from the public. First of all, thank you everybody for coming and speaking. Although as a board member, we can't comment on individual cases. I just want to say in a generic sense, I'm proud of what Enfield's doing to combat racism. Some of the steps that this district has taken and this board, for those who do not know, are conversations are ongoing with the Connecticut Associations of the Board of Education to have all 9 members of this board sit down with CABE and talk and have these conversations and figure out what we can do. Maybe there's something this district is missing, but we're willing to have those conversations. And that got put on hold because of COVID, but now we're resuming it, and it's going to happen really shortly. So that's exciting, and I'm eager to take on that opportunity to do so, to see what we're doing good as a district, because we're doing a lot of good things. But of course, there's always room for improvement, as in anything. So on top of that, our equity team at the high school is also one of the most prominent student organizations at that high school. And the staff at Enfield High has held monthly meetings with the community at Enfield High School to also have these conversations on equality and equity and ways, again, to improve. On top of that, eventually, I think through the conversations with CABE and through the progress that's being made at Enfield High School, this could possibly trickle down into our lower grade levels as well. So I understand full-heartedly that this problem is still prominent as ever. And I wish I had the sole power to end it myself. But unfortunately, I don't. And that's why I want to learn and educate myself and do what I can. And this board, I'm sure, feels the exact same way, all 9 members, if I speak for everybody properly, to do the same. So I'm proud of what Enfield has done to combat the racism in the schools, and I'm also proud of what's to come, because I know it's going to be good. Secondly, to concern on mental health, I agree, Mr. Delaney, with the amount of money that is coming from both the federal and the state level. We need to ensure that that money is being properly put into the programs it needs to, into the categories and programs that it needs to go into to combat that mental health issue as well. As you stated, the end of the pandemic and the kids returning to school is unfortunately not the end of it. And there is going to be a tremendous amount of work. Thankfully, we have 2.5 months to evaluate and try to get an understanding of what needs to be done. But the fall as well, fall of 2021, is also going to be an extremely important time to understand the needs of these children. So with that money coming down the pipeline, whatever it takes to ensure this mental health is being taken care of is 100% the necessary step to take. I think that covers pretty much everything. I yield my time back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Mr. Ungar.
So I want to thank everybody who came and spoke here this evening. I know it's not easy to come up here and speak about such sensitive subjects. I know that the fact that your grandfather, your father, came, elderly man, and not the best of health, I want you to know it caught our attention, okay? And so, Mr. Superintendent, there were some serious allegations made here this evening, and I'm concerned. And so I sit on the policy committee along with Chairman Salazar and with Scott Ryder, and you know, we pass policies because we care about our kids. We pass policies that are intended to protect them and to guard them from things like discrimination and harassment and a variety of different things that none of us like. and some of us experienced ourselves when we attended school. And we want things better for our kids. So, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Assistant Superintendent, I'm asking that you look into this, please. The allegations that were made here this evening, that you get to the bottom of it, and that you would report back to this board at our next meeting, so that we can better understand, please.
Mr. Unger, if I can just intervene for a moment, and I obviously can't share the specifics, not knowing, but a public report about a student incident in a public format like this in the board would be a violation of that student's rights. So I will not do. But Mr. Longe and I have been listening in this conversation as well. So making a public statement about a student matter is not something we're permitted to do. So I don't want to set the expectation.
Can I give you permission to speak on it?
Yeah, the mother waives privacy.
We can certainly have a conversation after that. We'd get that, and we would need something in writing on that.
Even
But
if the report happens to be, unaired and discussed, by the board, I feel it should, the conversation should happen regardless whether it's aired or not, and it has to be a closed meeting.
Excuse me, we can't have the public talking right now. We can take it offline after the meeting. Thank you.
So, Mr. Drezek, if we need to go into an executive session, then maybe we do that. But I'd like to learn more about what was brought to our attention here this evening. So, that's all I have to say on that. I read on a different subject, on a different note, something more positive. I read that Enfield High School announced their valedictorian and salutatorians, co-salutatorians. And so I hope I get her name right. Grace Ferris is the Enfield High School valedictorian. And congratulations, Grace. Great job. Amazing, Grace. Fantastic. And Alexis and Cassandra Dean as the co-salutatorians. No, it's a great deal of work, and congratulations to you all. And I just wanted to say that, and also to Grace Ferris's father and mother, Paul and Joan. Congratulations to you too. I know it takes a lot of work and a lot of support, and the same thing for the Dean young ladies, Vicky Dean, their mother. Congratulations to you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ungary. Mr. Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll cut mine short actually because Mr. Ungary expressed my thoughts as well. And I understand by guideline, by regulation, we cannot discuss any specific incidents at the school, but we're most interested. I certainly believe everybody is interested. There were pretty serious accusations made. So I want to understand what, if anything, is being done. And I'll be happy to participate in whatever conversation or forum we need to, but I like to understand, right? So I second Mr. Ungary and his concern. And then the other thing I would say is, I thought it was obvious by now, but there were some statements or a statement made about, us, the people sitting here on the board being a different people because we are not what's more recently referred to as people of color. And I am a person of color. I thought my accent would give me away. I came to this country as an immigrant from Mexico. I came to this country not speaking English, started high school. And so I'm familiar with, if we want to call it incidents of racism, I've experienced racist actions in my life. It does exist. I don't deny it. I was bullied because I didn't speak English in 11th grade. And, as you can imagine, people at that point in time, I don't know how malicious people were or not, but it, it hurt, but it happened. So I've been on the other side. I've experienced some of the things that you talked about here. So don't assume or believe, and it leads me to my statement really that, we can all make assumptions that are incorrect. We all need to be educated, to Mr. LeBlanc's point, and we're trying to, we're seeking that additional education and understanding. So I, as a person of color, am very concerned to hear the allegations, and we'll do everything, and I'm sure the board will agree, we'll do everything to figure out, the true nature of what has been happening, and if it has been happening and why it has been happening, and we'll do whatever we can to correct it if that's what's necessary. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Cushman?
I do want to thank you all for coming. But in particular, I just wanted to thank you, Elijah, for coming up here. And I really admire the strength that it took for you to come up and to speak. But I just felt like I was thinking back to when I got a call regarding this appointment to this board. And one of the first things that I did is I went on the Board of Education website and I looked up to see what was the mission statement for the Board of Education. Because before I felt like I could really commit to aligning myself with this group, I wanted to make sure that what they stood for, what their mission was something that I could embrace fully. And the very first thing that is in the Board of Education mission statement is that they aspire to create a safe, nurturing, and academically challenging environment for every student. And I believe that's true. I believe that those of us who are here, our desire is truly to make that possible and a reality for every single one of Enfield's students. And so I embrace the opportunities that we do have as a board for education. I know it's been a short time that I've been here, but the topic of equity has come up often in our meetings. And so it's something that we are pursuing because we recognize that the need is great. So I thank you for coming out. And just know that your voices have been heard. And we do care. And we do want to make school a safe place for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to? Ms. LeBlanc?
Okay, a few things to start about the superintendent's report. So April 19th, if all goes well, we'll be back 4 days a week, and the cohorts no longer. I think we're all happy to say.
Hybrid is over.
Never have to say cohort A and cohort B and D. And then just to reiterate, it'll just be remote and in person as options and no longer the hybrid after April 19th.
Correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify those two items. I know I'll say this about the vaccination process. That was incredibly hard and incredibly rough and frustrating that, we were there ready to go and it was not happening. And it just seemed like it was one bad news after the other. So I'm happy where we are now. I'm also happy that we can provide these vaccines in the district because I've been trying to help my sister who lives in Massachusetts register for a vaccine because she's an educator, and it is not going well, and those districts are not helping vaccinate their teachers. And Massachusetts is a bigger state, and there is never anything available, so I'm trying to help her with that. So I appreciate the fact that Enfield is doing that. For the people that came and spoke tonight, for the first gentleman, unfortunately, we can't, when you're talking, you would come to these meetings and you would expect that you could have that dialogue with us. And unfortunately, this is kind of how we have to have the dialogue. So I just intervened because I saw you getting upset, and I understood that, why you were here, you were very passionate about it. And I just wanted to mention, why I intervened, and this is kind of how the process is, whether we all like it or not, but that you would be eventually addressed during our board member comments. I'm not gonna make this about me, but I don't know if it was COVID or things that had happened over the summer, there is a lot of civil unrest nationally, and I learned a lot about silence is perceived as acceptance. And I learned that systemic racism is real, and I have a lot to learn as a white female who's raising 3 kids. They're older. So this summer, I made efforts to go to the equity team meetings for Enfield High, and I've been reading books that have been recommended to me. I read White Like Me, and now I'm reading Stamped. I see what you're seeing in other towns, that there are diversity directors being hired in Manchester and different towns. And somebody had said it's a public health crisis, and I agree. And back in June, and again recently, I had said that I would love a town-wide initiative for the town of Enfield to come up with an equity plan. As far as the district goes, we are involved with the equity toolkit, and I'm hoping those meetings start soon. And as Mr. LeBlanc said, the Connecticut Association of Boards in Education had a webinar in June as well that I was able to attend. And it was titled, Board of Ed members, your students and staff of color are not okay. And that was during the height of the civil unrest. So I joined that conversation, and one of the people talking was Dr. Martha Brackeen Harris. She's a Black woman, and she was amazing, talking about systemic racism and the effects that it has on children. And she talked about how we need to get more Black educators, and how that's, definitely an issue. And one of the things that a lot of people will say to us on the board is that we need a more diverse teaching staff here in Enfield. Eventually, what I would love to see, I think the equity team is a really good model for the district, but I would love to see an equity team established at each school, and then, like an overseeing equity team, so that we're bridging the gap between pre-K all the way up till 12, so that there's something that we're just carrying through every grade. Right now, I believe that there's things being done for equity across all the grades. I would just love to see something like that established. I think that we can learn a lot from the teachers and the staff that are on the equity team. They are always going extra lengths, going to education and reading about what they can do. When I sit up here, one of the things I learned just recently, because we always learn, right? Even at our age, there's always something to learn. A gentleman came up when we were talking about a policy, and he said, I'm not coming to change your mind, but I'm coming to let people know that there are people that hear them and there are people that care. And I struggle with that, because when I see parents or students struggling, my first inclination is to want to fix it. And I can't always fix it for what they need me to fix, but I can go ahead and try to fix myself. So I've been trying to educate myself. So what I want you to know is I hear you, and that there are people, it's intimidating to come up to this board, that there are people on this Board of Education that do care and do hear you. And I hope that you understand that your voices were heard tonight. I want to see if there's anything I can touch on. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. So as parents, we can take the hits, right? We can take those hits, we've grown up with them, but we want better for our kids. And it becomes very emotional when things are happening that we cannot control, like the effects of COVID on our kids, or the effects that, systemic racism is having. And it's a very scary time, because it's just nationally, and it's town-wide, you're feeling it in the town. So it's just, It's a very scary time for things, and we don't have that control, because that's what we're here to do, right? For our kids, we're here to take away the scariness and to make them feel loved. And I guess, as a parent, I can say that when we feel like we're losing control and our kids are getting hurt, then it's just a very scary and sad time for ourselves. So we always want better for our kids than we had. So with that being said, I appreciate you all coming out tonight and sharing with us your thoughts and your experiences. And like Ms. Cushman said, your voices were heard. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hall, would you like to go next?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and for making us aware of a situation that none of us was aware of prior to your telling us about it. And we, as has been indicated by other board members, want to know the details, and yes, we will not speak of them in public, even with your permission. It is just not appropriate to speak of an individual publicly, and these meetings are all recorded, and all that you have said will be available for anybody who wants to watch it, as a matter of fact. You've presented us with an unfortunate situation that we did not fully understand despite our work with equity. And I'm using equity advisedly because equality is not what we're looking for. We want equity so that every child can achieve their full capacity as students. It's not easy, and it's requiring a great deal of effort, and we will continue to do that. Thank you for coming. It's been unpleasant, but good to hear. Now, my regular type of comments involve things like, Mr. Dresik, do we know how many students will be remaining remote for the rest of the year?
Not definitively. Some of the schools are still working on it. Some people are reaching out and changing their mind, so we're going to give the schools a couple more days to gather that information.
And if Wednesday is continuing to be remote for the remainder of the year, is the Distance Learning Center planning to be open for that whole time?
My last conversation with Ms. Hall was yes.
Thank you. Now, I too had planned to acknowledge the salutatorian and the valedictorians of our schools. I even printed off their pictures. I didn't hear them until I read Unpatched. So I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that we have a great number of students who have achieved an honor roll this year, both at the middle school and the high school. And I think we should be very proud of the fact that they have worked that hard in this very strange year to be on the honor roll. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have some musicians in our group as well. We have a high school senior, Luke Barnes in this case, who has been selected to participate in the All Eastern Honors Ensembles on actually he has prepared, already done, on March 4th through 6th. He will prepare a remarkably challenging music that he will pre-record and submit for virtual performance under the leisure of prominent conductors, which means that he's going to be performing before people he does not know. It's not like he's been being led by just the conductor in the school, but rather to be introduced to a variety of conductors and must respond accordingly. Not always easy. In addition, we have a number of students in actually a total of 9 Enfield High School choral and instrumental students who've been accepted into 2021 Connecticut Music Educators Association Eastern Regional Virtual Music Festival. That's a mouthful. Each of them had submitted video recordings of prepared repertoire that was adjudicated by professional certified musicians. And through this competitive process, the following students scored high enough to be accepted into the band: Anna Bemis, Harley Griffin, and Andrew Jones; the orchestra: Jeremiah Agard, Benjamin Career, Laura Sikowski, and Jonathan Legier; mixed chorus: Allison Baker; treble chorus: Cassandra Fortune. I wish congratulations to all of these musicians and hope at some point in the future we'll be able to actually hear and or see them. I'm concerned not just about the mental health of going back to school, but the fact that once children who have been going to school with very small groups through the hybrid system and or have been effectively studying at home or in the distance learning center, but effectively individually, that when they get into a full classroom, will find it disruptive to them and uncomfortable. So this whole discussion of mental health and handling childhood trauma is critical, and we must all be concerned about that. Among those meetings that I go to on a regular basis, as I had announced at our last meeting, there was a policy meeting at Head Start. This past Wednesday was scheduled, but because of a certain vaccination event, it was not held until Friday. At that meeting, the committee, the policy committee of Head Start, which is composed of parents primarily, made a decision to accept changes in their budget that we will have to now, they accepted the changes, we will now have to vote on them and approve so that it will be official from a national Head Start event. And that is my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Ms. Thurston?
I wasn't going to say anything. I'm like having an emotional night tonight. I apologize. Elijah, am I saying that right? Elijah? I wasn't going to say anything, but like Ms. LeBlanc said, I don't want my silence to be taken as acceptance. It's not. And I am so sorry that you had to go through what you did. Thank you for coming up and telling us about it. And like the other board members, we are going to look into it. We are going to take care of it, and we're going to fix. We're going to do our best to fix what is going on. I promise you. Just give us a chance. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thurston. Mr. Ryder?
Yes, hi. I want to thank the folks that came out and spoke tonight. Again, I'm sorry that I'm not there in person. In the 4 years I've been on the board, I've only missed 1 or 2 meetings, and I'm trying to check in from the road to be remote present like our students. I just wanted to give an update on EnfieldPTO.com. We have posted the recent letter that went out today from the superintendent to all families. We've also posted the surveys from all principals. So for the K through 5 schools, the 3 K2 schools, and the 3 through 5 schools, regarding the return to 4 days a week as of March 22nd, those surveys are posted online. They've been shared through Facebook. To the folks that were there tonight that spoke, thank you for coming out, for speaking. I echo the sentiments of the Board of Education, from Mrs. LeBlanc and from Ms. Hall and Mrs. Thurston, and all of my colleagues. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming out and for speaking. not just the one student that experienced something, but for the folks that came out to speak, for the just for all of our students. We are taking action. Nothing changes as fast as any one of us would like, whether that be in our schools or in our society. But this is not something that we do not take seriously. This is not something that we do not wish could change tomorrow. This is not something that we wish could change with the wave of a wand or with the click of a mouse. And we are doing our best. Wherever we sit on this Board of Education, that the fair treatment of our students, as well as our staff, means so much to all of us. So again, thank you for coming out and for speaking. But please keep an eye on EnfieldPTO.com, keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on Facebook. We're trying to share our messages. We're trying to get things out as fast as we can. I'm glad that our schools are going to be reopening up for our kids. And thank you everybody who came out to speak tonight. Thank you to our chairman and to our superintendent, our assistant superintendent, and all of the staff. We are better for your input. We are better for your criticisms. We are better for your collective beings, students, teachers, staff, families alike. Thank you very much. I'm glad I didn't miss the meeting. And thank you to our nurses again, Trish Veda and your staff. Thank you so much for everything you did to not only keep us open, but a few of our neighboring school districts, as well as our bus drivers. This is a collective effort. This isn't just our buildings. I mean, these are our bus drivers. These are the moms who work as part-time secretaries in our offices at all of our schools. This is for the secretaries that work 8 hours a day. These are the few that work part-time. This is for our custodians, for our town of Enfield buildings and ground staff. This is a collective effort that does not go without extensive effort from not only our superintendent and his staff, not only from our support, which he has, of course, but like, you have to be willing to go into a building and work when you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm so proud of everybody that's trying to do the right thing. I thank you, everybody that's involved in our school districts, the volunteers, the PTOs, it's just a collective effort. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. So again, I want to thank the people for coming out to speak, just like the rest of the board mentioned. We will hopefully look into this, and with future meetings, we are working on the equity issue, so we will try, we'll do what we can, because we care about Enfield. We all want our kids to get the same education. So I want to thank the, and I'm just not going to say your name, but the faculty member from JFK for the support from our teachers. Thank you for coming and speaking. It means a lot that we have the staff, had support of our teachers, and we support you guys 100%. Again, just like Scott said, Mr. Ryder said, I want to thank the nurses again for even coming back and assisting with the gentleman. That's what our staff does. That's who they are. I've always said we have the utmost best staff in the state. So I do want to go back to the clinic. I did volunteer there all day last Thursday, and if anyone's looking to help out, they have 2 sessions going on. They have an 8:30 to 12 session and a 12 to 4:30 session you can volunteer for. And you can reach out to our town manager's assistant, Deb McCarthy, at dmccarthy@enfield.org. and she would be willing to set you up on, because it looks like the clinic will be open till June at least. And just want to say that Deb McCarthy was there all day. That pretty much that she's been there almost every day. So she's helped out along with our town manager Chris Bromson, who was extended for another year at the last council meeting also. So thank you for hanging around and working with us together with our superintendent. It's a great partnership that we have. I also want to thank the town council for working hard and approving that clinic to get open over there. That was great job on the town council side to get that clinic set up. And as vaccines are being produced, we will hopefully get more, and we can get more shots into people, and pray that we get to that this year we bring us back to some normalcy. So with that, I will just echo that my board pretty much covered all the comments like they always do. So thank you very much. And we'll go on from there. Thank you. Number 10, unfinished business, we have none. Number 11A was moved up earlier, so we'll go to a number 11B, approval of fiscal year 2021 federal Head Start grant carryover request. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Do I need to read this for the record? What's in our packet, or the letter from?
No.
Okay. So just we can say the amounts, or?
There is $26,603 in what was other professional activities in their budget, which has been reserved to be used for work with the Giselle Institute, the Connecticut Science Center, Leanne Bolo as an function and attendance at the New England Regional Conference. And a $39,091 will be in CARES funds, will support an extended school year for the kindergarten students who are currently doing half-day or short day at Head Start.
And the way it was presented at Finance last night, that we didn't spend the money as of February 28th, because the year starts from March 1st to February 28th, that we had permission to roll it over to this year's
Exactly.
grant. So, any other discussion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Salazar?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurston?
Yes.
Mr. Ungary?
Yes.
Chairman Krizel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So we move on to number 12, board member reports. Curriculum, Mr. LeBlanc.
Curriculum meets on March 18th.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Ungary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met last evening, March 8th, and a couple of items. Number one, we welcomed a new member to the Board of Education Finance Committee, and that is Mrs. Janet Cushman. Congratulations, and good to have you part of our team. And the Finance Committee also appointed Ms. Tina LeBlanc as our secretary. So congratulations, Tina, as our secretary. So I'd like to move now into
Politically correct.
approval of accounts and pay.
We're gonna do that later at number
Okay.
14. That's a separate at 14.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Policy, Mr. Salazar.
Our next meeting is next Tuesday, the 16th. We have not had a meeting since this board last met, and we're continuing with review of the 6,000 policy
Okay.
series.
Leadership, we're waiting for CABE to get back to us, and we can schedule something on our equity training and workshop.
Vaccine clinic.
Yes,
messed that up, but
exactly.
I'm
No,
getting on
that's-
track.
Shots in
after
the arm
tomorrow.
are the top priority right now, so. Joint facility will meet this Thursday, but we presented our, thank you to Mr. Ryder, I have to give credit where credit's due, to our rooferendum 2021. And it was presented to the council this last Monday, the Monday past, and with some good accolades from the council that hopefully we get that on the ballot for November. Mr. Ryder, would you like to comment on your rooferendum?
Yes, I just wanted to say that the most important function of our buildings obviously starts with our roof. As Councilwoman Donna Seswick has said, like, until you can protect the inside of the building, it all starts with the roof. It all starts with our seals. We have leaks, unfortunately, in some of our buildings. Some of our buildings are older than others. And without protecting the top of these buildings, we're kind of denigrating what's going on inside the buildings. We don't want to have buckets and collecting water and rainwater. And I think if we could kind of push for one specific motion to, one specific plan to go after all of our roofs, or at least all of our school roofs, with our most important town buildings, our police department. I just think it's the best course of action to have a 5-year plan to get these roofs addressed and to protect our students, our town employees, our town police, et cetera. And I believe that this is the best way to go about that.
And I just want to add that Hazardville Memorial grant has been approved by the state to do the phase 1, and we just had to reapprove the Eli Whitney, so that's going to go to the state, and hopefully that correction will come in the next week or two to get that approval. So we will be doing at least 2 school roofs this summer, one phase at least of. And we're hoping to get them done in 2 phases, not like Barnard was 3 phases, so stay tuned. JFK Building Committee, I have the keyboard here, and I'm going to pop up a presentation. This was presented at the last JFK meeting. So with that, hopefully I run this right. There we go. So this shows the auditorium. And the plywood goes down first, and then there's a skin that will be attached to the plywood. So that's coming along. And that green area will be the main entrance to the auditorium. This is inside the auditorium. The left picture is on the stage, and the right picture is part of the seating in the auditorium. So it's coming along. And this is a picture from the stage looking out where we'll be seating. These are one of the locker rooms. The lockers will sit up on those concrete pads, and then either sinks or something on the other side. This will be the school store. This will be right when you walk in from that new entrance. There'll be a school store there, and then that's the entrance into the auditorium. This is Blackwing, and the new cabinetry in one of the art rooms, and then the tiles in the hallway. This is the fitness room in the yellow wing, and that's just an outside view of the fitness rooms. This was the pool on the right hand side here. Was the old pool. That will be the new cafeteria, and that's looking out into the hallway in the cafeteria. And they took over White Wing just since they gave up they gave us back the Blue Wing. So they started, all the windows have been removed. They're starting to do the brickwork around for the PCBs and starting to do tear down inside. And more of the tear down of White Wing. And so, just so you see, on the left picture shows that we've blocked out the White Wing, and that we released the Blue Wing back to the public.
It's going to be stored in town somewhere?
Honestly, the question never came up, but I could ask.
I'd just be curious.
Find out.
Because we look at, like when we look at pictures of old Thompsonville or things like that, people actually take a curiosity to it. So I know we don't think about it now, it's just a locker, but in 150 years, who knows? It may not just be a locker. It may be, oh, that was from the original JFK Middle School. So
Do you want one?
perhaps.
You have a truck, so if you want, we can arrange for you to pick one up, so. I personally don't have a truck anymore, so I can't help you there. So that's JFK update?
I'll just make a comment.
Yes,
I think
please.
that it's amazing. I don't want to jinx it, but it seems like it's going at a really good pace.
Yes, they're on schedule.
And I hope that they're able to keep the pace up because I know that the teachers are excited, especially when some of the teachers are teaching in the new wing already.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. They've done a great job. The kids come in, the kids that do come in, they're happy, they're smiling. It's
Yeah.
a different vibe.
Thank you.
together.
Yeah,
It's coming along.
It's great to see. And if we were looking at preserving something, perhaps it could have been the Pink Panther phone booth wall for posterity, because my kids didn't know what a phone booth was. So if you really want to date it, I think that was eventually painted over. But no, thank you. I enjoyed seeing that, and I'm very
I will
happy with
bring
the
them to the
progress.
board as
Yeah. It's all been painted over. There's Pink Panther, Charlie Brown. I forget what else, but.
Preserve Bell.
Well, thank you. And I will bring more updates as they come. Joint Security, I believe the meeting was postponed. Okay.
March 3rd meeting was postponed.
Joint Insurance, we're still waiting for a date. We've added a new one here, Youth Mental Health and Wellness Advisory Committee, and Mr. LeBlanc was requesting this, so please.
Yeah, so I attended my first youth mental health committee meeting, and the Eagle Rewards program through Rachel's Challenge has recognized 100 students so far for acts of kindness, 50 at Enfield High and 50 at JFK. At the high school, during morning announcements, information will be presented regarding mental health strategies. And a couple more points. In April, there is a planned Spirit Week, and in May, there will be a mental health awareness activity. And our next and final meeting for the school year is on May 19th.
Sorry about that. Thank you. And with that, no other updates? So approval, number 13, approval of minutes, regular Board of Ed meeting minutes, February 23rd, 2021. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion? Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands.
Aye.
And Mr. Ryder said aye, so that's 9 in favor, 0 against. Thank you. Now, Mr. Ungary, your favorite time. Number 14, approval accounts and payroll for the month of January and February 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Approval of accounts and payroll. So the Finance Committee met on March 8th, 2021 to review financial statements for the month of January year-to-date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I need a motion to accept the superintendent's certification as follows.
No, you're providing them.
I hereby certify that in the month of January, total expenditures amount to $7,113,587.65, broken down between payroll totaling $3,947,979.20 and other accounts totaling $3,165,608.45. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Hall. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Do I have an aye from Mr. Ryder?
He sent a message to you guys that his internet's very
Oh, okay. All right, so we got at least 8 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Ungary.
So this is certification of grants and Head Start expenditures. The Finance Committee met on March 8th, yesterday, 2021, to review financial statements for grants during the month of January year to date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. Make a motion to move that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of January, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount to $380,273.42, broken down between payroll totaling $299,365.56 and other accounts totaling $80,907.86. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Hall. Any discussion? All in favor? We have 8 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Ungary.
So now we're moving into February, and this is certification of expenditures. The Finance Committee met on March 8th, 2021 to review financial statements for the month of February year to date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I make a motion that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of February, total expenditures amount to $6,553,855.22, broken down between payroll totaling $3,985,230.95 and other accounts totaling $2,568,624.27. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion?
Simultaneous.
All in favor? 8 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Ungary, one more.
Finally. This is for certification of grants and Head Start expenditures. This is for the month of February. The Finance Committee met on March 8th, 2021 to review financial statements for grants during the month of February year to date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I'd like to make a motion that I move that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of February, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount of $567,522.93, broken down between payroll totaling $315,929.46 and other accounts totaling $251,593.47. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Hall and Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? 8 in favor, 0 against. Thank you, Mr. Ungar. That's 2 months down and 10 more to go this year, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, non-transfers, we have none. Number 15,
There's nothing.
we have none. Executive session, the 2-hour one scheduled, there's just none? No executive session? Okay.
Oh, we
So
disappointed.
motion to adjourn by Ms. Thurston, seconded by Ms. Cushman. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, ETV, and thank you all for watching. Good night.